Hello, welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Molero.
And we are the FAIRtax Guys. How many times have we done this? You're going to have to practice on that a little bit.
Not coordinate. I was never in sports.
Well, me neither, but anyhow, well, I do bowl pretty well, but that's about it. Totally another subject. We are coming to you live from Big Daddy Studios here in Gainesville, Florida. It is November the 7th, the day after the big election.
Yep.
We're on 8:31, that's Pacific time, 11:31 Eastern time right here. So if you're catching the live version as opposed to one of the archive versions or one of the audio only things, we'd certainly invite you to jump onto Facebook here and comment along. We've got now Randy Fischer, who is normally our commenter-in-chief here on thing to answer comments and stuff. He will be on the phone with us live here shortly as we're going to kind of be digging into this election thing. And Ron, it was kind of a mixed bag. Both sides have something they can point to and be happy about and something that they can be not too pleased about.
Well, for the general election, yeah. As far as this program is concerned, as far as the FAIRtax advocacy, I'm very pleased. I had time to look at Florida and Georgia, and all the Florida co-sponsors in the House were reelected, all right, including the person who won Governor-elect DeSantis' seat, District 6 here in Florida, a new guy, Michael Waltz. He signed a pledge to co-sponsor. He won. And in Georgia, I had time to look at that. I haven't had time to look at all 50 states. But in Georgia, every co-sponsor of the FAIRtax won their reelection. So that says something.
That is a good idea. Now, of course, Ted Yoho here, the congressman in this district, who is not just a co-sponsor, but an ardent and very enthusiastic FAIRtax supporter. I'm glad to say he won again. So, and it's kind of nice to know that the kind of a two-edged sword here, Ron. We did not get a very big rogues gallery of, dishonest political ads we were going to try to highlight before the election. We only really got just the one ad that was run, Adam Putnam's primary campaign ad against Ron DeSantis. We had another lady, Soderberg, who was made a reference to my opponent wants this big, huge federal tax, and it's just on her Facebook page. It wasn't an ad.
And she didn't pursue it.
So they didn't really double down on that. They didn't really pursue it. She lost.
But let's go back to very briefly, during the primaries when Ron DeSantis and Adam Putnam were going to each other, and Mr. Putnam decided to go low on the FAIRtax. And he got a tremendous pushback here in Florida, and it contributed to his loss. So, because Florida, like Georgia and a number of other states, is very strong for the FAIRtax. Well, that kind of propelled Mr. DeSantis into the governor's race, and he squeaked it out yesterday. He's now the governor-elect for Florida. So having Mr. Putnam go low like that on the FAIRtax was not a good idea for him. I mean,
okay, we will unpin our rogues gallery here on our Facebook page before too much longer, and hopefully we will bring it. Hopefully we will bring it back in a couple of years. Yeah. Hopefully there won't be a whole lot of entries in it when we get into the 2020 election cycle. But we'll continue to highlight anybody who is not telling the truth about the FAIRtax. As a matter of fact, our entire next episode that's going to be shown next week is going to be on things about the FAIRtax that people are saying that just aren't so. I see Randy's online with us. Hopefully we'll have him on the phone here shortly.
I see his smiling face up there in the photo.
Okay, I hear in my headset that he is on the phone. Good morning, Randy.
Hey, Bob, how are you?
Oh, that blew my ears off. That was awfully loud.
I can hear him fine.
Now they've got it fixed.
I could take my hearing aids out and hear him fine.
Very good. Well, thank you for joining us.
Sorry about that. Is that better?
No, it wasn't your fault. It was here on this end. We're good. But
no, we can hear you just fine. And thanks for calling in, because we need somebody with the expertise and somebody who's not only a board member in Florida, but for the national group to kind of analyze what's going on here. So we're glad you're available this morning.
Okay.
Well, let me mention the FAIRtax candidate pledge first.
Yeah.
If you want to go there.
We do.
All right. Well, we drafted this in 2017. We had an earlier version that was not as specific. And this candidate pledge basically identifies the candidate, the office, and states that they will actively, visibly, and fully support FAIRtax. When elected, they will immediately co-sponsor and vote for the FAIRtax Act, and it defines the purpose of it as promoting freedom, fairness, and economic opportunity by repealing the federal income tax and other taxes to abolish the Internal Revenue Service and to enact a national retail sales tax on new goods and services. So we've got, I believe it was around 16 total candidates for federal, state, and a couple local offices that signed the pledge in this election cycle. Now, many of those were in primaries.
Do we know if any of them won yet, or are we still trying to dig up some research on that?
We're still trying to dig up some research. Obviously, we know that there were some close races, even as far down the ballot as Congressman Rob Woodall in Georgia. I understand his race was very close, and we'll be doing a full review of this. We know that a couple of the Florida delegation, I think Ron, you checked, and that anybody that was a previous co-sponsor who ran again was elected.
We did very well in Florida. All the members of the House that were co-sponsors, plus the new guy in District 6, who's the district that Ron DeSantis had before he resigned to run for governor. And, of course, Mr. DeSantis, who is now Governor-elect DeSantis, was a co-sponsor. And Rick Scott, who is now going to be our senator-elect, he's a strong advocate. So we're going to have to work on him.
Yeah, now that's somebody we're going to have to get to co-sponsor as well. Yeah. Because a lot of times they'll give you lip service during the election cycle, and then when the rubber meets the road, they, well, I'm not so sure.
I think he will. I really do.
But I'll guarantee you, when somebody says it needs more research, they don't have no clue what they're talking about.
Yeah, and I can tell you another congressman here from Florida that said that, but I'm not going to mention it now.
All right.
Well, Neil Bortz has told me that he and Rick Scott are pretty good friends.
Oh, yeah. And you know, I think didn't Governor Scott mention that when he had a campaign stop in Ocala? You and I.
He did. He made a point to, as soon as he saw my FAIRtax hat and shirt.
Yes.
To mention that he and Neil Bortz were good friends.
Yeah.
And then Bortz is always bugging him about the FAIRtax.
Good.
Now, I think we're in a unique position that we have not been in the past, and that is that two southern state governors, one state Georgia, one state Florida, both support sales taxes and do not support income taxes, and they both support a FAIRtax bill, DeSantis having been a co-sponsor, and I believe the governor-elect for Georgia, Brian Kemp, has supported the Georgia state FAIRtax bill, which would repeal the Georgia income tax and replace it with a broader-based Georgia state sales tax, and it would have a prebate feature in it, just like the national FAIRtax.
Yeah.
The other thing I understand is that Georgia may have elected more state senators, which is where they were weak on their Georgia state bill, to have more support in the Georgia Senate.
Oh. So local and state elections have impact too.
For 2019 may be trying to get the Georgia state FAIRtax bill to the governor's desk, and trying to get Georgia's U.S. Senator David Perdue as the primary sponsor for the national Senate bill for U.S. Senate FAIRtax bill for 2019.
Now, if I understand correctly, Georgia currently has a state income tax, right? And this effort would be to get rid of their state income tax and put in a state FAIRtax, including the prebate.
Correct.
So, just like I say, just like the national group, that's what we're trying to do on the national scale. Yep, that's. That's a good experiment.
It is. Now, Randy, I want to get back to Rob Woodall's race for a little bit, if I can, what you know about this one. That there was some dissatisfaction with him within the FAIRtax ranks earlier. They thought he was not being as enthusiastic a supporter as he could be on that one. Do you think he got the message that he needs to get back into the game and on actively supporting the FAIRtax?
Well, according to Steve Hayes, who's president of the National FAIRtax Organization and in pretty close contact with Congressman Woodall, he did get the message. He feels that the gains that were made under the Tax Cuts Jobs Act were evidence of the fact that the features of FAIRtax are something that the Congress is going to be willing to adopt over a period of time. But obviously, we need more than that. We need the FAIRtax.
Yeah, definitely.
Something else that I was thinking as well that has been missing. The FAIRtax has been MIA from the national discussion on tax reform. I'm thinking now that the House has flipped and the president still wants to go forward with some kind of, tax reform, tax cuts, he says, tax cuts 2.0. Do you think that there will be a bit more robust debate on that subject now that we've got one house in one hands and one house in the other hands? And would the FAIRtax possibly come up, be more likely to come up in that scenario, in your opinion?
It should. And our efforts are going to be to make that happen. But the one thing that actually might make it happen is President Trump's tax returns. Because it's a virtual crusade, practically a jihad for the new Democrat majority in the House to try and get production of every tax return of every Trump business and personal tax return for the past millennia. So I think that they're not only going to try to get those, they're going to try to leak those possibly illegally to the public.
By law, that is available to Congress.
That may have a boomerang effect where President Trump might just say, you know what, we need to eliminate this entire income tax system.
Yeah, because look at this. His tax, the IRS, Bob and I talked about this in a previous episode a long time ago before we were on the air here. The IRS has a special unit that looks at the tax returns of the mega rich, okay, like Mr. Trump. All right, they go over his returns with a fine-tooth comb. So if they had found something, we would have known about it. The IRS would find it, and and we would have known about it. But the partisan people, whether it's on the right or the left, you've got never Trumpers and you've got Democrats and so forth. They want to use the tax return, even though it may be 100% legal, they'll find something in there that people may not like. Legal, but not pleasant, and use it against him. Why do we have a tax system that can be used as a bludgeon against people? I don't care if they're rich people or poor people or whatever. We need a tax system that cannot be used as a weapon. So we really need the FAIRtax to get rid of this crazy income tax.
Yep, that's true, because if the government does not have your personal information, Congress can't get a hold of it. Tax returns are legally available to Congress if they want to get them.
Right.
And of course, if somebody in Congress gets a hold of the president's tax return, it's going to get leaked to the New York Times in 3 nanoseconds. Yeah. So I think a good case, if Trump feels like he's been violated in this regard, then possibly we could get him on board. Well, why don't we just get rid of the whole system that makes this possible? And somebody's asking on our comment page, Michael Thane, I've been in favor of this forever. When is it going to get serious traction? Hopefully it's going. Well, the direct answer to that is it's going to get serious traction when there's enough grassroots efforts out there demanding it, and it becomes a winning issue at the ballot box. But hopefully, as Randy has mentioned in the comments as well, that the FAIRtax folks here are working on a strategy to get both the president and the vice president on board with it for the 2020. I have never understood, if you want to clobber your opponent at the polls, Why don't you say, I want to get rid of the income tax and my opponent loves the IRS? Make your opponent defend the income tax.
Yeah.
Make him defend the indefensible. Make him defend all of the stuff that goes along with it, withholding from your paycheck. Make him defend all of the ugly and nasty stuff that goes along with the income tax. And I've never understood it. It would seem to me that it would be a hands down, slam dunk win at the ballot box to say, I want to get rid of this system and replace it with something that's much more simple, much more fair, and you never have to file a tax return again. And that is what happens with the fair tax votes. It really does.
Yep.
Well,
hello, Carl from mid-Missouri.
What you see is demagoguery by people like Adam Putnam, where they claim the 30% sales tax on everything. And we need about 435 groups, one in every congressional district, that are out there active and supporting the fair tax. And we're working on a strategy called Boots on the Ground, where we're trying to make that happen, where we're trying to spread more and more small group grassroots networking. National Director Jim Bennett, he writes a grassroots corner every week for the Fair Tax Friday, and we're working with another volunteer in Virginia in trying to get this Boots on the Ground campaign going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, because if somebody at a high level, like the White House level, talks about the fair tax, you're going to see an explosion of interest and busy work for us. I mean, people will still be saying, what is that? There are still way too many people out there who have no clue what the fair tax is. Yeah, unfortunately.
I mean, we've been at this for 20 years, believe it or not. This is not an overnight sensation. We've been at this for 20 years. Yep. The fair tax was hatched in the early 90s, first introduced into Congress in 1999, nearly 20 years ago. And in fact, it will be 20 years ago when 2019 Congress convenes, and there's still way too, because I'm sure that there's just an unwritten blackout in the media. Yeah. The media people don't want to talk about it. Sean Hannity will, if he's pressed, he says, yes, I like it, but he won't feature it on the program. Ditto for Tucker Carlson. Ditto for a lot of these folks that say it's a great idea, but, it's never going to happen, so I'm not going to talk about it. And Steve Hayes gets on with Stuart Varney, and he's not allowed to really talk about the fair tax. Stuart just kind of steers him into...
it's amazing how Varney just stuck with the conventional wisdom. I mean, they're so stuck with the income tax, they can't seem to think outside of that box. Come on, be a little creative here.
So I know folks out there, the grassroots, are kind of getting a little tired of politics right now. This is a really exhausting process we go through every couple of years. But we are going to need boots on the ground. Randy, if somebody wants to volunteer for that Boots on the Ground program, how do they do it?
Well, they should contact me. They can reach me at my FAIRtax email address, randy.fisher@fairtax.org, or they can contact Jim Bennett. Jim.Bennett at fairtax.org, or they can simply send an email to info@fairtax.org, and we'll get back to them. We'll put them in touch. The other thing they need to do is go to member, MEMBER, fairtax.org, and make sure that they're signed up there. And then they can work on making some connections with people in their local area.
Yeah, well, I imagine folks are going to want a little rest and respite from all the politics for a while, but we're going to have to crank this up again, at least in January when Congress gets back in session.
Yeah. And
I'm hoping that, even since the Democrats have now taken over the House, that we can probably direct some more effort at them. When they've been in the minority, then, they didn't get a whole lot of attention. But there is a lot about the fair tax that the Democrats like, or they should like anyway.
When the fair tax was as I understand it, Randy, when the fair tax was originally proposed in Congress in 1999, it had both Republicans and Democrats signed on. Isn't that correct?
Yes. Matter of fact, one of the principal co-sponsors and one of the earliest, was a California Democrat.
Yeah. So
of all things.
And Bob and I have done several shows on why Democrats should like the fair tax. And, we can bring out a lot more information. So, yeah, maybe we'll get some. Things have gotten so polarized in Washington. It's unfortunate because this is an idea that appeals to everybody if they care to look at it carefully.
Yeah, a system where it's mathematically impossible not to pay your fair share.
Yeah.
Who would not like that? Hearing from James Lloyd asking why is it not passing, and I think the simple answer to that one, too many Congress critters in the pockets of too many lobbyists.
Yeah, and they're on both sides of the aisle, all right? Yep, some of these, as you say, the Congress critters and so forth, half of the people in Congress are millionaires. Some of them became millionaires while serving in Congress. How did they do that? Well, because of the backdoor deals and the lobbyists and so forth. And they kind of like that. And, of course, the fair tax would remove that little avenue to wealth from them. So they don't like that. So we've got to get that. We've got to force the issue. And like Bob says, we got to have a groundswell of grassroots support. We just got to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Kent Sogge, S-O-G-G-E, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and says apparently it's not being taken seriously at all, really, because people are just so in the box of the income tax now.
Yeah.
It's you're going to have to whack them with a 2x4 to get them to realize that you can get rid of the income tax. It was fair tax designed to be revenue neutral. We'll still have to have the debate on how to spend the money. But yeah, that's a big problem there, Kent, that it's not being taken seriously. It has not been part of the national discussion on tax reform, and we are trying really hard to change that. So if you got family and friends that like to see this video, share it with them, please. We'd appreciate that.
Yep.
And just the more education we can get out there, because really, once people understand it, they demand it.
Exactly. And there is a way that you can contact the White House. If you go to whitehouse.gov/contact, whitehouse.gov/contact, and you can send a message to the president. You know, this is the time for the fair tax, okay? Phrase it however you want. Keep it short and simple, and keep it respectful, obviously. And, you know, we can have some influence. And plus, that's not just a one and done. You can use whitehouse.gov/contact every day if you want and send another word, and send another note. You can go to bigsolution.org, and bigsolution.org has all kinds of, it lists all the many reasons why the fair tax is superior to the income tax. And you can get some talking points off of that, insert them to your email to the president. Because once somebody from the White House mentions the fair tax, I think it'll be downhill from there.
This is great news. Check your comments there, Ron. Kent is saying, I'm a progressive and I think it's the best option. It's the best option for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't think political ideology comes into play when you're deciding if you'd like more money in your paycheck or not.
Well, we do appreciate that because we need more bipartisan support here, and we need bipartisan support in Congress as well as with the people. When we present, you know, if we go out to a group and we present to, my wife and I have presented to the Democratic Club of one of the local communities here. They love the idea, okay? Mm-hmm. It's the leadership that you have to get through. But the rank and file, everyday Americans, they love the fair tax once they understand it.
Who would not like more money in their paycheck? Who would not like to get rid of the FICA tax?
Yeah.
You know, put Social Security on a more firm foundation by making the tax base everybody that buys things rather than everybody that works for a paycheck.
Yeah.
There is a lot to like that is totally, you know, free from any kind of political ideology about the fair tax. People like, I just don't like spending 2 hours filling out a stinking tax return, you know. But fair tax, that goes away.
Yeah,
whether you're progressive or whether you're conservative, it doesn't really matter. I don't like to do that, and I don't know many people who do. And if we can get everybody across the political spectrum, if we can get some of this polarization knocked down and get folks to think on a practical level, what will the fair tax do for me? It will let me bring home more of my paycheck because it gets rid of withholding.
Yeah.
It will let me bring home more of my paycheck because it gets rid of the payroll taxes. It means I don't have to fill out a tax return anymore, and the government still gets the same amount of money. Where's the downside? There isn't one. So we really need, Kent, again, we really appreciate your support here. Hopefully you can help us peddle this to some of your progressive friends, and we can get this done.
Yep. Randy,
yes, sir.
What going forward here, what do you think the FAIRtax guys ought to concentrate in the coming weeks?
Oh, there's a loaded question, Corey.
Yeah, that is a loaded question. I think we need to concentrate on trying to get people to network in their local area so that they get a supply of palm cards, a supply of business cards, and they start trying to spread the message.
And how would somebody go about getting palm cards and business cards? He set that up really good for you.
Well, it just so happens that we have a FAIRtax logo store. It is called the web address is fairtaxlogostore.org. And if you go to that site, you're going to find all kinds of things. I'm not sure. They've kind of shied away from the mugs because the handles tend to break off. But there's travel mugs.
This one's mine.
Yeah. There's these palm cards that Randy was talking about. You can order a supply of these. And
tell people what's on it. What's on the palm card?
Okay, well, we got basic information. FAIRtax Act, H.R. 25, S-18. The S-18 is going to change in January because it's always H.R. 25 in the House, but the Senate, they do things differently, so it's going to be a little different. There's bullet points here on the advantages of the fair tax, and on the back there's more information. There's websites and so forth where you can go to find information. So this is a great way. Whenever we go to a restaurant, when I sign the check, they get this as a tip also. And we have these cards, which are smaller, but same idea. Basic information about the fair tax on one side, the prebate schedule on the flip side. People love these things. You can buy these things at the store. FAIRtaxlogostore.org. You can go there and buy it, and you can buy hats and shirts and jackets and all kinds of things. These pins, my wife always has these pins attached to the strap of her purse, and these get attention. So there's lots of promotional materials, and we encourage you to go there and get them and buy them and display them and give them to your friends and family and so forth. There was a lady, my wife always brings this up, there was a lady who bought the FAIRtax book and gave it to her son on his wedding. Yeah.
Reading material for a particular night? Yes, okay.
Yeah. You and your new bride need to learn this, and you need to learn it now. So,
but I'll tell you what we do. A lot of people might not understand that when this new Congress convenes in January, we start completely over again. Everybody that's a co-sponsor now has to re-sign up.
That's right.
If you're out there in the grassroots, make sure that if your congressperson is a co-sponsor today, that they become a co-sponsor again in the new Congress as well, because we've had a few that did not renew their co-sponsorship, and we're going to pay those folks a visit.
Yep.
But make sure that they do that, and hopefully once they co-sponsor, they actually become active supporters as well. So make sure that all of the co-sponsors, because again, we start over at zero.
That's right.
In January again, and hold your congressperson's feet to the fire and make them do it.
Yep.
They work for you.
So. Well, we got a couple of minutes left. Randy, I want to thank you for calling in today because you're always a wealth of information and you keep us, up to date on what's going on in the national group, the Americans for Fair Taxation. And Randy, when my wife and I have meetings here in Gainesville, Randy calls in on FaceTime, and when we have our meetings in Ocala, he always attends those, and it's very helpful because it gives everybody a perspective of not only what's going on in Florida, but what's going on across the country. So we truly appreciate your help today. Thanks a lot, Randy.
Well, keep up the good fight, guys. I'm going to go ahead and sign off.
All right, we'll do it, and we will too, because we're just about out of time here on this edition of Fair Tax Power Radio. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, we're here every Wednesday at 11:30 Eastern Time on the Facebook page or our FacePack official page. Also, excluded.tv. Check that out as well. We'd sure appreciate you sharing the video with your friends and family and helping us get the Fair Tax word out to as many folks as we can.
And I want to mention PopVox. PopVox, like Bob said, in January, they're going to have a whole new flock of, representatives and senators, and the fair tax has to start all over again. Well, that means you have to go to PopVox and start all over again.
Yes, it does.
Yep, because it doesn't carry over from the 115th Congress to the 116th. They will start afresh. So, and we'll hit this in future, in our next few episodes. Get everybody to go on to PopVox. So you can go on there now. It's kind of a lame duck session right now, but you can go on there and display your support for H.R. 25 and S18 and so forth. But come January, when we start over again, we're going to have to do it all over again. So we'll keep hitting that.
And that's going to wrap up this edition of FairTax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
We are, let's do this right this time, the FairTax Guys, reminding you that the fair tax is America's big solution, and once you understand it,
you will demand it.
Oh, these income tax forms are way too complicated. There's got to be a better way. Who are you?
We're the FairTax Guys.
We've got a big solution for you.
What's that?
It's the fair tax. Completely eliminates the federal income tax system as we know it. No more withholding, no more payroll taxes, no more tax returns ever, no more IRS. All gone. And I guarantee you, once you understand it,
You'll demand it.
Yeah.